In November 2022, a landlord in Vallejo, California was attacked by two cult members, Alexander Lethem and Emma Boranian. He was stabbed multiple times, blinded in one eye, and actually fended off and killed Emma Boranian.
Whoa! I can't believe that he just killed one of the attackers of the cult members, I guess. But that's actually kind of crazy. Why are they randomly attacking for other people? It's kind of very weird.
Jack Lasota left our lives, but not our hearts, on August 19th after a boating accident. Loving adventure, family and friends, music, blueberries, biking, computer games, and animals. You are missed. Now, a few months after all this, it seemed that, our friend came back from the dead and ended up actually joining their polycule in Vallejo, California when they started living on land in RVs.
Wait, what? So he died and then came back living and then rejoined from the cult?
Which Ziz calls debucketing. We're told these sessions were done with Ziz and involved telling Maya to focus on the suicidal impulses while in a disoriented state. Ziz.
What? So you're just promoting for the person to game end themselves? So hello friends. As you can see, I'm a bit tired and tonight, man. Tonight's video, I guess. Even I'm just mumbling a bit of my words. Man, I've been working on a lot of class assignments from my school. It kind of been a heavy burden for me to have a lot of stuff to do, especially on focusing a lot of my school and, diverting my attention towards, my passion of making just a YouTube reaction. So I guess I want to fall asleep a little bit faster, so let's get right into the video. I do have a little bit of, announcement, I guess, in the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. So for today's video, it's all about a friend of Nick Crowley and Nexpo, and his name is Some Ordinary Gamers, and we're going to react on a video about a deep dive into California's deadliest vegan cult. So please go support, Some Ordinary Gamers. Also, his name is Mutahar, so the video will be linked on the description below if you want to, see it. So let's get right into the video. So it's all about cults. I love cults. This channel has had some cults in the past, so let's go.
Of 2022, Rita and Richard Zoshko were found shot to death in their home. The person of interest, their daughter, Michelle Zoshko. A person linked to a cult known as the Zizians. A religion that has been brought up in national attention known as Zizianism. In November 2022, a landlord in Vallejo, California was attacked by two cult members, Alexander Lethem and Emma Boranian, in which he was stabbed multiple times, blinded in one eye, and actually fended off and killed Emma Boranian.
Whoa! I can't believe that he just killed one of the attackers of the cult members, I guess. But that's actually kind of crazy. Why are they randomly attacking for other people? It's kind of very weird. And also, I mean, there are a very zealous cult after all, so I guess some of them are managed to, be violent in some certain cases. And it's kind of fortunate that, one of the daughters of the parents, I guess, was, killed by their own offspring. That's kind of, yeah, man, that's extremely that's so, man, that's so depressing to just look out to your child, and just let her grow and take care of her. And over time, as she grows, it's just ended up the one who's gonna kill you in the end of the day. That's kind of crazy story.
Self-defense. 3 years later, he was stabbed on January 17, 2025, this year. A German national and a cult member.
What? That's kind of crazy. No way, bro. He successfully, I guess, defend himself against two attackers, killed one of them, but unfortunately he's been subdued and killed this time around. So yeah.
Olivia Bachholt was killed in January 2025 in a shootout with border agents in Vermont near Canada. In this border scuffle, there was one more individual who lost their lives in relation to this cult. That person was David Malland, a U.S. Border Patrol agent killed on January 20, 2025 during a traffic stop turned shootout. All these 6 deaths are tied together by one cult known as the Zizians and their leader, Jack Lasota. So you might be wondering why this is something that I'm interested in. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely a story that involves really talented people, supposedly. People who have had resumes in Google. A lot of people from the big tech industries out in San Francisco. People who have been engaged into a cult, completely separated from family to an extent, I believe, mentally. And in a situation
Yeah, usually friends that basically there's some cult tactics that usually involves distancing yourself away from your family and loved ones and everyone that you care of. It's basically like an isolation tactic that they typically do in order to recruit new members within their cult. And they usually do this in order for you to have no safety measures and no one to rely on except for the cult itself. And that's why isolation is usually one of their main tactics when it comes to cult recruitment.
completely separated from family to an extent, I believe, mentally. And in a situation, in a surprising turn of events, almost resembles something similar to what I read about, in relation to Charles Manson. To understand this cult, you have to look at their leadership, and that leader is Ziz. Now, this is a actual cult post written on a platform known as Void Goddess, our sacred lady of the winding fractal. To give you an idea of who Jack is, a quick background is written by them. So in 2012, as I first start reading up on EA and X-Risk and starting to donate to Miri after I had first decided to side with Team Human, not Team Negative Utilitarian, which I saw in some ways as more aligned with Team Human, I respond to a public invitation to discuss how to make Outcomes to the Singleton better from Anna Salomon. I asked her whether I should try to alter course and do research, or continue a fork of my pre-existing life plans. Earn to give as a computer engineer, but retrain and try to do research directly instead. And the time I was planning to go to grad school and had an irrational attachment to the idea, she sort of compromised and said actually I should go to grad school, find a startup co-founder, drop out, and earn to give via startups instead. Yeah, this person really wasn't interested in education. They decided to apply the cheat code right here. So yeah, you get kind of an idea of who Ziz is, ladies and gentlemen. They're a computer engineer who wanted to basically start up a company, cash out a bunch of money that way, but as you can imagine, there wasn't enough follow through there. When looking into the actual philosophy that Ziz has dug into, you can see mentions of, things like the Sith. For anybody that has no idea about what the Sith is, welcome to the world of Star Wars, which
Yeah, the Star Wars stuff about the Sith, and I think it was I don't know, the Rebels. I'm not into Star Wars, by the way. Or I think it was the Jedi. Yes, the Jedi. I finally got it. The Jedi. Future friends, man, I'm so tired. I don't know if I can make it this anymore. Pretty unfortunate, man. Like some people like this, are extremely very talented and they just like throw themselves away and isolate from their parents. And not only that, they're extremely very violent. And I don't know why this particular type of cult is extremely very violent against other people, because sometimes usually cults are involved with, violence within the cult itself rather than outside of the cult,
which is exactly the kind of fiction we're digging into to base all of our life work off of. The Sith do what they want deep down. They remove all obstructions to that and express their true values. All obstruction is what is within flowing to without. If you have a certain nature, this will straight turn you evil. That is a feature, not a bug. For whatever would turn every last person good is a thing that comes from outside people. For those who true volition is evil, the adoption of such is a practice, is a dirty trick that subverts and converts them. It serves a healthy mind for its immune system to fight against, contain, weaken, sandbox, meter the willpower of, that which comes from the outside. And of course, they didn't get into the whole way of the Jedi. But yeah, you can understand just by reading this blog the kind of insane shit that I've had to basically jump into to understand the Zizian cult.
Usually not only insane, very insane, crazy, mentally delusional, I guess. Detach, is that even a word? Detach against the real life world and going to fantasy land.
Now, much like the Zizians and their technological background, I also too use technology, and I found that, in fact, Ziz was also not just a talented cult leader, it seems, but also somebody that had a knack for making video games. For instance, a puzzle Metroidvania game for Mac, Linux, and Windows known as Dicethesium. And of course, the more you go down into it, it almost resembles a game known as Catherine. If you don't know it, it's an Atlas puzzle game. Far better than this dog shit. But of course, you go down in over here, and they've even got whole video gameplay for it. So yeah, it actually is a game that they were working on. But of course, did Ziz actually finish this game? doesn't entirely seem so. It seems like this is where the game sort of plateaued in the year 2015, and they had much pressing concerns. So at this moment in time, it seems like Z's has decided not to necessarily jump in and make a startup using their computer science degrees or their master education, or at least what they were going for, or follow through on their game. They decided at this point that the best, option was to actually go near, ladies and gentlemen, the Bay Area of San Francisco.
Usually, friends, if you don't know, I'm also actually have a course of technology in my school, and that's usually the focus of, my education. Just a little bit of background in my sense. I'm usually schooling technology and about computer and stuff. Basically IT and information technology.
Where Silicon Valley is located and most of America's tech sector. Now, Jack Lasota, or Ziz, in November 13, 2019, on their actual blog, The Rationalist Fleet, decided to make this entire long post detailing their time basically going into the Bay Area Silicon Valley tech industry, and of course, at one point, building an entire residence on a boat, ladies and gentlemen. Now, at this moment in time, Lasota started ingratiating themselves, not in actually working and succeeding in the Bay Area, but actually deciding to jump down into the rationalist movement. Now, the rationalist movement, for anybody that doesn't know, there's, websites like lesswrong.com, which kind of touch upon the rationalist movement. But for a quick idea, it's basically focused around things like rational thinking in the world of the tech industry. So basically, it's using reason and evidence to actually make things like, decisions in life, which doesn't sound really wrong or anything. Like, obviously, everybody should be using evidence and reasoning to make, like, proper decisions. I don't even think there needs to be a movement or an organization that you have to be a part of to just have basic human cohesion.
Imagine like you have a call to like, hey, eat stuff, or I guess learn how to sleep properly.
But to understand the Zizian cult, which is basically a very fringe offshoot of this entire movement, basically started adopting things from, extreme veganism and basically getting this anarchist ideology, and eventually figuring out things like timeless decision theories and what.
What? Okay, this is getting into crazy fantasy land, man. It's like, what does this have to do with rationality? It's like, if they're into, I guess, timeless decision, or I don't know, veganism. I think veganism has healthier options, I guess. I don't know. But one thing is, do know that they're getting very absurd, and especially like anarchism. Yes, anarchism. Basically, it's making anarchy and, all about chaos.
Whatnot. Basically, the entire community of rationalists wanted to distance themselves because they found these people to be completely fucking unhinged. Okay, so enter the rat fleet, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this video uploaded a few years ago several years ago, from Alaska to Washington, was a video that showcased the Caleb, a World War II era vessel that was eventually going to be turned into a residence. Since, yes, living in San Francisco, and even if you wanted to Airbnb buy the cheapest options you can, it's still quite expensive. Prohibitively so. Now, obviously, Jack and a friend of theirs, Danielson, ended up living on a small sailboat from around Berkeley Marina, where they couldn't even figure out how to, again, pay those docking fees properly, right? They didn't even have any money in that situation. Money was effectively being burned, and really nobody was saving the world. And tensions actually grew up in this situation when Lasota had realized in her blog, or their blog or whatever, that Danielson may not be somebody that they could entirely resort to. They talked to themselves all the time, had ADHD and autism, which I guess grew the rift between them. And while throughout their process they were finding other people to live on these sailboats with, eventually other sailboats was purchased, like the Black Signet for $600, and eventually this all became the Rat Fleet. Point is, ultimately, at the end of all this, these ships...
That's so cute. There's a lot of dolphins within the sea. Wait, this was in the Bay Area in San Francisco? It's kind of cool, like you have dolphins there. Here in the Philippines, there's actually no dolphins. I've never seen a dolphin before here in the Philippines, even though there's a lot of sea area here. I guess dolphins doesn't exist here. But from the cult perspective, it's kind of weird, like how simple, like how the cult, started, where they just ride on a boat, I guess. And it is a bit of a tragedy that majority of the people, especially, living in the rich, wealthy nations, I guess, I never actually thought like here in the Philippines, I'm always like living poor, you know. It's like it always fascinates me like how rich American is and the way they, you know, advertise themselves from the world. But whenever I see like a lot of people there on the American side, like as a Filipino, you know, and my perspective is like, holy shit, I thought everybody in the America is rich, you know. Like I didn't notice like some of the people are actually struggling, almost like have no money, and some of them are drug addicts, and it's like it's crazy out there. It's like, whoa, I thought this was the, you know, the glory days of America, I guess, where everybody's rich and everybody's living happy, and that's why a lot of people migrate there in America and trying to live there, you know, because of this, I guess, false advertisement. And I guess right now they've been trying to prevent those type of people, you know, coming into America. It's kind of unfortunate and sad.
Actually, this all became the Rat Fleet. Point is, ultimately, at the end of all this, these ships were later abandoned. And with lawsuits starting from the San Mateo County to Danielson and the various owners, it ended up costing around $100,000 to get these eyesores out of the harbor and return some beauty to the actual landscape. So, of course, the cult here decided maybe living on boats wasn't the option. They moved inland, they moved to recreational vehicles. And that's when Curtis Lind unfortunately got involved into the story as a landowner that, decided to let these people rent. But wait, before we go to land, we have to talk about Jack's death. Apparently, Jack had an obituary posted. Apparently, Jack fell over the side of their boat, the Black Signet, and actually fell to their death. How do we know this is apparently a thing? Well, let's read their obituary. And of course, this was from September 7, 2022, published on the Daily News Miner. Jack Lasota left our lives, but not our hearts, on August 19th after a boating accident. Loving adventure, family and friends, music, blueberries, biking, computer games, and animals. You are missed. So there's like whole comments over here too, right? Like, Jack, you're one of the age's visionary philosophers. Now, a few months after all this, it seemed that, our friend came back from the dead and ended up actually joining their polycule in Vallejo, California, when they started living on land in RVs.
Wait, what? So he died and then came back living and then rejoined from the cult? I'm pretty sure I'm mixed matching here, or maybe I'm just sleepy, or I'm possibly like half dreaming right now on how tired I am. Because I used to be like sleeping early at night, so I guess my brain naturally time itself to really sleep right now, even though I'm just trying to really record this video, man, because I want you to have the best, I guess, viewing experience. Me suffering and struggling, my god. At sleeping, I guess. And hopefully entertain a little bit,
And effectively at this moment in time, Mr. Lind, who was our landowner from earlier, who unfortunately had lost their life in a mysterious quote-unquote accident or murder regarding or related to what the police believe with this cult, yeah, they were squatting, and I believe 2 days before the eviction, they had actually started attacking Mr. Lind. And while it started off as attacks, it unfortunately ended in someone's demise. Now, this is where, again, few people have been calling out this cult for what it actually is. Now, beyond all of this, there were situations where these people were protesting, and they got the attention of law enforcement agencies. And when you looked closer at them, they obviously, were a completely wild cult enamored by so much pop culture. I mean, the Star Wars stuff I talked about earlier in this video was no joke. There was a moment where literally the police had actually encountered these people believing they were shooters when they were dressed up like hooded figures resembling Emperor Palpatine or the Sith Empire from Star Wars. I mean, you really can't make this shit up. These people absolutely were enamored by pop culture, by veganism, by rationality, so to speak, when they were displaying the most irrational traits possible. Now, there wasn't a lot of people talking about this just around the internet. I did see a couple of posts on Poll, which is obviously 4chan's politically incorrect board. And of course, over here, the actual sentiment was just as much as what I had. The Zizian shit is bananas. And of course, when people were looking at Lasota, obviously the general consensus was this person definitely puts the lotion on the skin. But of course, this led me to an actual Zizian.info page.
I unfortunately hit my my light. I don't know what that means. What do you mean by put lotion on the skin? I mean, is it makes all much sense to just put lotion on the skin?
The skin. But of course, this led me to an actual Zizian.info page, which shed more light on the actual cult and their really fucked up methods of, being the next New Age Charlie Manson-esque cult. Now, the Scythians page by Apollo Mojave actually focuses entirely here. So the introduction of this works like this. Attendants of the 2019 CFAR alumni reunion were shocked to arrive at Camp Meeker only to be turned away by the police. The venue was occupied by 5 mass protesters in black robes. Surrounding them were several police cruisers, SWAT, and a helicopter, and the figures who were reportedly there to protest had made themselves seem too sinister. So yeah, again, these guys made themselves look like actual potential shooters, and obviously the cops are going to respond in an appropriate manner. So Ziz, the central character in the story, writes a blog, sincerely.fyi, which is what I showed you earlier in the beginning of the video. Sincerely started out as a self-improvement column giving advice on motivation and habits. Over time, it became a platform for Ziz to discuss ethical and social theories. Before the Camp Meeker protest, Ziz was known for her Rationalist Fleet project. Rationalist Fleet was supposed to be a way to avoid paying high Bay Area rents by living on boats. The idea was that if you could extract people from paying rent, they could spend the time studying and still get access to the Bay Area network. As she tells it on Rationalist Fleet, did not go well. Having moved to the Bay Area so they could work on AI risk, the dysfunction of the Bay wore them down. Her posts became progressively more bitter over time, until the latest ones accused CFAR and Miri of sexual and financial crimes. So what is the purpose of this entire expose document? Well, apparently
It seems like a lot of this type of people have been, they really just have no money, man. Like they've really been struggling, and it seems like they're trying to control a lot of these people to, I guess, pay up some money to, I guess, rent them and gain money from that in that way, I guess they're trying to manipulate their own like cult members in order to do this. So it's kind of very nefarious, and I don't know how they get very very violent. I guess like over time they do get violent because of this type of troubling times and financial problems that they've been having. Also, I don't know why they're very obsessed with fleet and boats. That's a very very interesting passion that they have. Also, it's kind of interesting that they call themselves the Rat Fleet. Oh, I just realized the main reason why they call themselves the Rat Fleet because of the Rationalist Fleet project. Yes, I get it now.
crimes. So what is the purpose of this entire expose document? Well, apparently it's basically to count that there are 9 folks in the orbit still who endorse the ideas and keep mutual friendships, and the purpose of this document is to warn you not to join them. Ziz is a master manipulator, extremely skilled at selling people on nonsense ideas about decision theories and ethics that defy not just the rules of rationality, but basic common sense. Ziz is interested in AI risk researchers and approaches them under the guise of providing mental tech for people to build a singleton based on altruism. So again, to go down into here, some of the philosophies earlier on we talked about a little bit was functional decision theory. So the theoretical basis for the Zizian social conduct is functional decision theory, is designed as an answer to Newcomb-like problems where the actions of others are conditional on which decision theory an agent uses.
It's kind of fascinating that this type of cult seems to be different from the other type of cult because majority of cult are basically operated in a sense of religion-based beliefs and I guess this like outside world and kind of like serve in a higher purpose of some entity. I guess that's the way I'm trying to reword religion and God. But in this case, it seems like the Zizian type of philosophy is more likely than not an intellectual one. It basically involves more of theories and philosophies and more likely beliefs about evidence and I guess evidence out there. And it's more likely those type of like theories about, I don't know what it's called, but I think they call them conspiracy theories. Yes, I have the idea now. It's like my brain is very slow whenever I'm trying to be very very sleepy, man. It's like loading in my brain, just need update before providing the information.
Problems where the actions of others are conditional on which decision theory an agent uses. In normal English, it's about situations where the environment will change depending on who you are. The classic example is a choice between 2 boxes full of money. The first box has as much money in it, but only if you're a sort of person who will take that box and leave the other behind. Functional decision theory says the solution to the problem is to choose a strategy which responds to the situation by only taking the first box. So in Zizian thought, this concept is expanded to justify behavior that would make a sovereign citizen blush. Zizians do not think it is ever valid to surrender. The reasoning goes that if someone is trying to extract a surrender from you, giving in is choosing a strategy that gets coerced into surrender. If you fight bitterly, you prevent the coercion in the first place by making it too costly to fight you. Or in some cases, it really seems like allegedly some people who are tied to this will lead people to actual death. Killing them will absolutely prevent any form of surrendering or any form of ownership over you. So here they go into talking about how Ziz's mind kind of works too. Ziz believes there are two kinds of core, good and non-good. Non-good cores are the most common, 95% of the population. A non-good core is one that only grants full agency when dealing with issues of self-survival and protecting offspring. That is enforced by a filter that only unlocks full agency when it detects those objects in a situation. Sometimes this filter breaks, producing a good core. Because people have two cores, there are three basic alignments: non-good, single good, and double good. Single good is 5% of the population, having one broken core which allows limited altruistic agency. Ziz seems to believe the probability of cores breaking its independent. That means the double good alignment only occurs in 1/4 of 1% of people. Look, I know at some point you're probably walking into this going, what the fuck is going on? And if you're actually...
Yeah, like what? What the fuck is this? Like, why there's like good and non-good? Why just call it bad or evil for that matter? You know, there's like evil, there's bad. It's, I guess, non-bad. Maybe gray area. Then there's good, and there's bigger good, I guess, or higher good, a good good. And you know, in the world, usually I believe in a spectrum. I don't believe like good and bad. There are cases like, you know, there are morally right stuff to do and there's morally wrong stuff to do. And, you know, sometimes it is a bit of, you really need a bit of balance in both ways. It's like really good and bad is a bit of a spectrum. And sometimes there are some bad, you know, like killing stuff like that. Those are just very, very bad, of course. I guess you really just set like the foundations of the what's good and bad, and other stuff that are not involved from the good and bad, I guess, from the good and bad, you know, labels. I guess you can... Maybe it is spectrum, you know, because sometimes the world is a little bit complicated and some are just, and it's just very easy to say like good and bad things about some stuff.
Responding that way, it's because we're looking at crazy cult indoctrination. So Zizians believe normal ideas about morality are mostly obfuscated nonsense, which makes sense. He says if humanity is honest with itself, it will eventually adopt uncompromising veganism. Zizian thinks arguments which don't acknowledge this are not about morality at all. They're about local struggles for power delaying the removal of an unjust status quo. This is a lot of the reason why they're so unhappy with Miri and CFAR. To them, their organizations waste their time on fake philosophy problems. In trying to figure out human values, they're not fighting philosophical difficulties, but rather their own cowardice and refusal to update on their poor moral practice. In the mind of a Zizian, liberalism means the same thing as it does for a communist or Nazi: an opportunity for decadence, vice, and corruption. Because we already know the correct moral policy is a ruthlessly enforced altruism towards all or almost all living creatures. So then they start to talk about like Rocco's Basilisk, and here you can actually see like an idea of like their Discord groups where they're talking about this shit. So with the user,
I think if you don't know, friends, I think Rocco's Basilisk, I think it is thought experiment. Yes, it was a thought experiment, not a mental experiment. What am I on, man? That's what you do when you're just very sleepy, man. But usually Rocco's Basilisk, I think it was a thought experiment about, you know, that humans made something that is so, I think, so evil, comprehensively evil, that you don't even know that exists right now, you know. And it's very scary. Like, you know that there's a monster and something that is more destructive that can end humanity and all, and you don't even know where it is, you know. It's a very scary thought experiment. But usually the thought experiment is all about AI, and, you know, I think when you don't know, whenever this AI is, you know, truly a monster that will destroy humanity at all, or maybe not, you know. And that's usually what the Rocco's Basilisk is. It's a very scary monster. And we don't even know if it's real or not, or it will become a monster or not. Because that's the uncertainty of it all.
Known as Ratsby, Ziz is basically talking about, if I get the singleton, there will be retroactive justice. Fucking Nuremberg trials. It's just better timelessly. Rocco's basilisk. Is that you? No. Rocco says, I will torture you if you don't contribute. That is not justice. What is justice as a concept? I read your post, but really couldn't process it. It's a self-modifying meta-concept that optimizes timelessly for good. Timelessly, the correct punishment is the minimum that would convince the person not to do it. And the singleton can dole out rewards as well. The only crime I'd consider worthy of hell is unironically caving to the dark god's own would-be self-fulfilling religions, feeding the world to them to save yourself from hell.
Yeah.
What's a dark god? Rocco's basilisk says, support God because he will torture you otherwise. Which god? Rocco picked a shelling point. Cave to power. That's a dark god. Yeah? Wouldn't know.
We basically lost the entire plot at this point, man. It's like, I don't know what it even means. Is there a plot twist somewhere that I missed, or did I skip, did I skip the cutscene?
No job will do to a motherfucker, let me tell you. Now, this moment in time, they talk about actual cult tactics. So some of the cult tactics used are unhemispheric sleep. One of the tactics Ziz uses to manipulate people is unhemispheric sleep. UHS for short, unhemispheric sleep, is a form of sleep where only one half of the brain rests at a time. Normally, it is not possible for human beings to sleep with only one hemisphere. However, a weak form of UHS can be achieved by stimulating one half of the body and resting the other. Like hypnosis or fasting, this is a vulnerable psychological state for a person. Entering UHS requires a sleeper to be exhausted. It also has disorienting effects, so they are not quite themselves. The Zizian exploits this state to convince the unwary that they are actually two people.
It seems like I'm within an unhemispheric sleep. Yes, I'm pretty sure I butchered that wrong. Yeah. I'm just very sleepy, man. I think I'm really in that sense of, I guess you call it hemorrhoid sleep at this point.
Themselves to be double good, and almost without exception tells people she is recruiting that they are single good. So yeah, basically I assume half your body is sleeping, you're just like tingling the other side and letting the other side sleep. That's almost like a fucking weird stroke, to be honest with you.
It's almost also like a zombified mess, I guess. There are actually some animals, friends, that can manage to sleep on one side of their brain and not on the other. I think dolphins can do this, I think. Or possibly it was octopus. I don't know, I kind of forgot. I don't want to, misinform. But there are some animals that can sleep halfly from their body.
But of course, to go down over here, they give you an idea on how to perform on hemispheric sleep. But then they talk about things like the Maya Pasek. According to someone familiar with the matter, Ziz played a large role in the death of Maya Pasek, also known as Squirrel in Hell. Maya tried UHS as a way to gain awareness of her twin personhood, which Ziz calls debucketing. We're told these sessions were done with Ziz and involved telling Maya to focus on the suicidal impulses while in a disoriented state. Ziz.
What? So you're just promoting for the person to game end themselves while being on a, I guess, half sleep? That's a very insane way to force people to, I guess, have these ideations, especially when they're in this disoriented state. I guess they just promote themselves to, I guess, control that person to, unfortunately end it all.
Ziz briefly mentions this in her post, Good Group and Pasek's Doom, but skips over the details for obvious reasons. Supposedly, Maya began using UHS as an alternative to real sleep, and if you paid attention in the previous section, you know that that's a bad idea. Then, of course, what's the most common type of cult tactic is cutting off support networks. Ziz will tell people they're in the process of indoctrinating to get away from trusted family, friends, and lovers. Jay gives an example of this on her blog with the comment. Now, this blog unfortunately doesn't exist, but this comment reads, it's still noteworthy that Ziz tried to break up a happy marriage, so like someone could spend less time being with a partner and more time trying to save the world. Doing that is a good way to get people to stop satisfying their values and in turn become less effective.
This is very fortunate, man. Like, I think for people to really value I really love to value, friendships and especially family. And because that's the only one who are going to be with you, in the end of, and throughout the years, and even in the end of your lifetime, I guess. That's kind of a weird way to say it, in the end of your lifetime. But yeah, usually people are always there for you. You know, that's why I love growing friendships, community, and love having a family. You know, but usually these type of calls, man, they really try to like distance you away from this type of people. You know, so that they won't get you help, and there's nothing else that's going to support you but themselves. You know, and try to manipulate you. These are usually their main tactic. Is usually to distance you from them. And usually, some of these calls are also have a very enticing type of beliefs that might potentially help you spiritually, intellectually, I guess, heavenly.
And of course, then obviously jargon and loaded language. Ziz's enemies are known as vampires. So I guess Camden Gerard Davis actually is Ziz's. We might actually have like a Clash of the Titans here. The massive
We have like we're gonna have like a Twilight, yeah, Twilight Warfare, like a Twilight movie from Warfare.
unenlightened humanity, zombies, nice folks who don't see things her way, single good, and the construction of good is particularly jarring. And of course, then it's the creation of a new identity. So the idea that every human being is actually two people is not just recognized as an abstract fact. Zizians encourage the adoption of a new identity alongside these lines. So the left hemisphere, right hemisphere to the brain, the Zalis and the Yanrei respectively, they encourage new members to make significant and uncharacteristic lifestyle changes. So for instance, Ziz
It's kind of interesting. If you don't know, friends, in science, usually all of your right brain will be controlled by your left side. All of your left brain is usually controlled by the right side of your entire body, like even the eyes. But the eyes are very complicated because the eyes are also in half. So this part of the eye is usually controlled by the left brain, while this part of the eye is usually controlled by the wait, no, this is the left. Yes, this is controlled by the right brain, while this is controlled by the left brain. So all of our eyes are actually cut and have to be controlled in X's. So all will be X. I don't know why nature prefer this, but I guess it's very efficient to, I guess, control the opposite side of the body and more efficient rather than like having the same body, controlling the same stuff. I think this will become too more independent, I guess.
wears dark robes all the time, a preference which explains ill-fated decisions again with that early protest. But here's where they talk about, the people who were arrested in this protest were apparently all transgender women. So basically, it's not necessarily a coincidence to target transgender people. The general idea is, according to this post, is they're usually financially vulnerable, which makes sense. There's not a lot of money in the trans community to go around. Obviously, if you look at situations in regards to keffels and plenty of the other individuals in this case, it's often in community that usually gets shunned from their families, and then of course they really don't have any money to go with. So obviously, for these people, they
Actually, friends, I'm actually going to share you a little bit of a story of one of my friends. We usually were online friends, but man, her story was debilitating. Like because she's kind of a Muslim, and you know where this is gonna go, and she's considered a trans person. And next thing you know, she was gone into the hospital and getting shunned and tortured to some extent. Yeah, it was very bad. It was so unfortunate, man. She was like losing her mind even. Like I'm not gonna share who she is because privacy reasons, and just like really support her. Troublesome life, I guess, within her country. But usually, right now, she's been doing well, and she's still alive, of course, because she has like very dark ideations when it comes to those type of stuff and torture stuff, and I can't blame her. Within those like it was very horrifying, especially like hearing all of the situations that she'd been through. I guess a little bit of story. I guess a shared story.
literally may be estranged from family friends, they may lack stable housing, and sometimes they may not have access to social services. Then, of course, creating that new identity. During transition, people change their name, and that creates an opportunity for Ziz to jump in and basically give their new identity more of a cult-like peppering on top of it. So ultimately, what is known at the present is quite alarming. Ziz preaches a doctrine of radical high-tech veganism that promotes punishing your ideological enemies, not good, because that obviously bleeds into possible real-world violence, as we've seen in this situation, allegedly. And of course, she rejects the idea of niceness, community, and civilization. And most importantly, they use unethical tactics to onboard new members. So if you have somebody that is being groomed by someone like this on Discord or any social media to join the Zizian cult, stay far, far and away, because in reality, these people are literally just a cult, if that.
Yeah, usually, friends, if there are some people that spouting this type of crazy ideas, always stay away from them. Especially like this may sounds weird, but usually people who are involved with like cults and I guess grifters and snake oil businessmen like trying to scam you in some certain way. Basically, they're trying to like, hey, I want to help you, or you need to pay something in order for you to, I guess save your life in the spiritual heavens above. Those are usually like scam whenever there's an involvement of you taking your money or isolating you away from your family. Stay very away from those. The only thing that you need to stay away is those type of people that's trying to stay you away from your family. To stay away from those type of like shit, like people are trying to grift you in other way. Because I think the most important that you have in life is your family, your way of life, and friendships. Some friends and family are also bad to a certain extent, which is also kind of unfortunate. But hey, as long as you have someone to contact, ask for help, I guess they're really just there for the best of your life.
And it's a cult that, has done some pretty serious things to have actual deaths and, killings tied to them.
Please don't skip. I am sorry again. I am here for my family. We are.
Now, obviously, look, Jack Lasota is an unhinged psychopath, okay? January 2023, in a booking photo provided by Pennsylvania, Jack literally refused to speak and basically wanted to be completely closed while being photographed when they were detained in this hotel. So yeah, this person is an unhinged nutjob psychopath, okay? And unfortunately, they've drawn in a bunch of other unhinged psychopaths that have taken this religion to an extreme end that has allegedly resulted in the deaths of people that realistically should be alive today. Unfortunately, they're not, because this weird techno-vegan trans religion has come in and basically fucked up the minds of people who were admittedly pretty vulnerable to start off with.
Yeah, and you well, not actually to a certain extent. This may sound shocking to your friends. I actually I guess, only watch YouTube, so my source is YouTube, bro. Usually, I found out like people who are into cults and stuff are usually people who are not actually vulnerable. In fact, they're actually rich to a certain extent. That's why they actually pay some of those, cult members a lot of money in order to just join them about like this spiritual stuff, or even intellectual type of but usually these type of people, they love to be experimental. I guess they're open to something. I guess there are some, to a certain extent, missing something that is core from their inside, and they really like hone in and lean towards this type of cult mentality, I guess, in order to, I guess, feel safe in this chaotic and crazy world.
Obviously, this video is kind of a touchy subject. This isn't your standard true crime fare. This is a situation that's very much actually ongoing. So I want to treat this with a level of respect, right? Obviously, people like Jack are, predatory. They're actual predators. And unfortunately, it's not just the people dying that are the victims, it's the people who are currently engaged in this weird cult who are also victims themselves.
Yeah, also it's kind of fascinating that this type of like cult is still ongoing till this day, I guess. Is even though they're very, very violent and especially like extremist type of like cult ideology. Man, and they really are truly predators that are lurking and taking advantage of people who are vulnerable. All of those like type of stuff, and try to, I guess, leverage and manipulate their state of living, I guess.
So realistically, I do hope those people get deprogrammed, because, a cult like this is being inside like the most fringe religion, or being inside like a terrorist group almost as a kid, or a criminal group that you join in as a kid. You get indoctrinated, and that indoctrination can stick with you for your entire life. And it's very, very difficult at times to take that indoctrination, deprogram people, and get them back to normality. But that's really the best case that you can hope for. Yeah, this is a wild story, ladies and gentlemen.
Very
I read
wild.
about a border killing that people were using as some weird culture war fodder, and it ended up being an actual New Age Manson cult that is led by veganism, transgender ideology, very loosely, I would say. Because most of it is centered around, again, the idea of AI risk and Rocco's basilisk, truly unhinged shit all coming together, and with various pop culture references to Star Wars and plenty of other things that we've all grown up with, it's just led by one unhinged fuck clearly preying on other mentally ill individuals.
And I guess he does have a bit of that power and connection because of the pop culture that he is, referencing for people to, I guess they're a little bit familiarized of those type of, franchise and culture.
So yeah, the Zizian cult. Not even once, ladies and gentlemen. Stay far away from that shit. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. Also, we have merch that is coming out. I've been kind of pushing this the last couple days. But we've got our hoodies, we've got our coffee mugs, and they're all over at someordinarygamers.store. Coming very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested, check it out. Have a good time. This is me, Mutahar, and I.
Man, I love that. Oh, shoot. Oh, I hit my headphones. But yeah, man, I love that. Like, I should do that. I should do that more often. Like, man, after this video, I'm gonna do that, friends. But yeah, friends, it seems like, wow, what a very crazy cult. Like, they try to really manipulate like a lot of people in order to get very violent and, unfortunately lost their own type of lives and sacrificing over stuff that doesn't even like matter of a person who's extremely like deranged, I guess. So friends, I've been like watching about like the stuff that from the early videos that I'm trying to announce and try to give out my thoughts. So here it is, friends, like on my YouTube channel. I've recently uploaded my video about birthday gone wrong by Nick Crowley, and unfortunately it didn't have any type of views yet, even though it's an hour from now. But it is very interesting, like some of the videos, they unfortunately didn't gain a lot of views than expected from my other type of videos, but it's to be expected, because in the end of the day, I'm just like here, I guess, making something entertaining, and I kind of hope like people are going to watch this. And also, if you're still watching through this video, man, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment as like how my channel is. And I really want to, I guess, make this channel a little bit slow, and I want to yap a lot and a little bit of entertaining, joking a little bit here and there, even though we're watching like very scary videos that are related from from this channel, I guess. And I hope moving forward, I really been loving like this making YouTube, man, and like sharing my ideas and thoughts, and like watching my favorite type of content creator within the YouTube sphere. Yeah, I guess that's all for tonight, man. Like, I need to sleep a lot, and I really genuinely thank you for still supporting me, and I guess watching this video, or even like there's no views at all, or only one views, I guess. But I'm always like grateful for and welcome for any people just trying to enjoy and have a good time. Usually I'll always love that chilling, authentic, a little bit slow, I guess, and just enjoying the ride from this crazy world of life. Yeah, I got nothing else to end from there. So thank you, friends, and good evening.